all COVID restrictions on the 19th of July. It's good news in my view. What is your reaction to that a day on? One concern is whether Freedom Day will come with terms and conditions, small print and strings attached. That's a concern of my next guest. Andrew Allison is head of campaigns at the Freedom Association. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Mark. How are you this afternoon?
I'm very well. I'm irredeemably jolly because on the face of it, yesterday was good news.
Yes, it was, although the final announcement will be made next Monday, the 12th of July. Now, my fear is that Boris could add some tweaks to all of that, maybe saying that we do have to wear face masks in certain situations. Just let's wait until next Monday. But on the face of it, yes, it is very good news.
And does it feel to you like the first time in many months, perhaps in the course of the pandemic, that the Prime Minister has put his foot down and made a political decision and a decision in the wider national interest? Because we know there are many advisors in Sage who think that Freedom Day on the 19th of July is a bad idea. But for once, he has pushed back.
Yes, he does appear to have done that. And that was a little bit of the old Boris Johnson that we saw, well, all those years. Well,
feels like Andrew.
It is the Boris
Andrew, I've described it in a monologue a couple of weeks ago. We've had COVID Boris and Brexit Boris, and I know which one I prefer.
Yes, I think we all prefer the Brexit Boris. And the Boris that won that 80-seat majority in the 2019 general election. So yes, this is all very good news. But I mean, the mass debate is going to continue without a doubt. There are those who inside Sage and this sort of communist alternative Sage that is out there.
Well, I call independent Sage, Andrew. I call them they are the paramilitary wing of Sage.
Yeah, they're a bunch of commies.
Well, I find it hard to debate that. Certainly, many think that an enthusiasm for these COVID measures has a sort of leftward hue about it politically. Control, obey, follow the rules, big state.
Yes, and those people who are on there, we have found out that quite a few of them are pretty left-wing and would be Jeremy Corbyn supporters. So we know where their politics lie, shall we say. But I mean, I was looking earlier today, it was from a scholar from the John Hopkins Centre for Health Security, who was talking about social distancing and mask wearing, saying, yes, it works. But, you know, in an unvaccinated setting, once you have a vaccinated setting, then we should be able to lose all of these restrictions. And 64.3% of us, that's me included, and you, have received 2 doses of a vaccine. And that's great news. And that means we're at very, very little risk, both in transmitting the virus and also catching the virus. And if we are unlucky enough to catch the virus, the chances are we'll get something resembling a bad cold. Now, this is something to rejoice about, and this is the reason why we need to open up.
I couldn't agree with you more. However, you are concerned, Andrew, about terms and conditions. You're particularly concerned about parliamentary legislation, which gives the government a blank cheque to bring in more of these measures in the months to come.
Yes, it does. And that is the Coronavirus Act that was passed in one heck of a rush in March last year, just before MPs all scarpered from Westminster to isolate in their constituencies. This has been renewed. It was renewed in September last year. It was renewed in March this year. And it's due for renewal again in September this year. And there's every likelihood that it will be renewed again. So the government have these emergency powers just in case they need them. And that does worry me because we know what's going to happen in September. Children are going to go back to school. Students are going to go back to university. And there will be a rise in respiratory illnesses because that happens every September, October, every year. That always happens. That doesn't mean that the government should panic or the rest of us should panic. The vaccine is doing a fantastic job, or the vaccines are doing a fantastic job. They are protecting us. Our elderly and most vulnerable people in society are not going to get seriously ill. So we shouldn't panic at that point. But the legislation will still be there on the statute book, which means the government, if it wants to, and I will add if it wants to, could actually use some of those powers again.
It is a concern, isn't it, Andrew? We know the government have also spent billions on track and trace and testing. COVID marshals have been placed on contracts for many months, if not years to come. Local authorities are going to be having, potential for COVID measures for the foreseeable future.
Yes, and that is the worry. And this is the legislation that needs to be removed. There is no reason why the government needs these emergency powers, because we are no longer in an emergency. I know there are many MPs on our side of the argument who are arguing these points, but with an opposition who just seems to want to lock down. I mean, that's all that Labour is interested in. The government's acting in a reckless way. They want to lock down. We should be wearing masks for the rest of our lives. We should have social distancing. I don't hold out much hope that this legislation will not be renewed in September, because we have such a supine opposition.
Will the Prime Minister get a taste for his libertarian instincts, Andrew? Do you think that he will push back against the suggestion of COVID measures in the months to come? Because I'm hopeful that once we've had a taste of freedom, the public won't accept further restrictions.
Well, it'll all be there in the data, in the figures. If the Prime Minister can stand up in the House of Commons and stand up at a press conference and say, yes, we've had a 20,000, 25,000 new cases of COVID today, but just look at the figures. Very few people are getting ill. Hardly anyone's in hospital. Very few people are on ventilation. Very few people are dying. In that case, he can actually stand up and say, we will continue. And I hope that Boris is certainly there.
Andrew, brilliant to have you on the programme. Thanks for joining us. Andrew Allison is the head of campaigns at the Freedom Association.